Oh, fans of the Thief game, you get it. You understand the other fans, but particularly you understand the love-hate relationship of Thief Reloaded. But think about it. Think about how popular back in the day Call of Duty was. Battlefield 1942. In if you go to LAN parties, those were popular, right? And in some ways, in some groups, it's still popular. I think it's a bit old hat now. I think they always really wanted something new. I got tired of it back in the day because we played it a lot. Lads I used to work with on the weekends, we wanted something different to do, so we hired the local work canteen over the weekend to have a private LAN party, and we would play Battlefield 1942, Call of Duty, these other war games. Thief. Think about it. How great Thief Reloaded would be if it was multiplayer. Lots of places to hide, lots of places to hide in the shadows, rooftops, and so on, certain maps, and certain upgrades that each other player might come across to have the upper hand against the other players. You'd have a bow and arrow battle. You'd have a war game with bows and arrows, flash bombs, choke arrows, water arrows, broadhead arrows, explosive arrows, lockpicks, ways to get combinations for locked up things which might have other things in them, secret doorways unlocked to get to somebody selling dodgy merchandise off the black market for more weapons. And you could do all that within a multiplayer, whatever they would do, plugin. I don't think this has ever really been realized that there's patches and which are a bit dodgy here and there for kind of a multiplayer thing with the original Thief, but you're more like a co-op thing. You're playing with another player against the guards, against the system. But I'm talking about multiple people playing, connecting to a server. They did it with, which I hated. I thought it was too tacky, too linear. Anyway, Splinter Cell. But they did that. They did multiplayer with that. But I think that was co-op as well. Splinter Cell was awful and it's very linear. You would hide underneath a table just in time for somebody to go into a room and turn their back conveniently. Thief Reloaded, the re-release that Eidos Montreal release, annoyed the fans because the first level was really trying to hide the fact that really the first bits was like a training mission, but it's like you come across an area where you can't get up unless you got a rope arrow, and there right in front of you is a little box to open with a rope arrow. How fucking convenient. It's so easy, too easy. And the original Thief, the enjoyable challenge was, I need to get across. How do I get across? You had to think things through. You had to go somewhere and find something conveniently hidden away, a puzzle, perhaps even to do to get to the thing that you need to then go across. It was in that direction. This is why it was the greatest game for a long time. I mean, some people would still say it's the greatest game ever created because of that direction the mindset was in. everything to get anywhere was a challenge. It wasn't a combat game. Thief Reloaded's more of a... It's more combat than Thief, the original Thief 1, 2, and 3, like Thief the Dark Project, and Thief the Metal Age, and Thief Deadly Shadows. Then we had Thief Reloaded, which excluded the storyline, really. They excluded the Keeper cult. They excluded the pagans. There was some small reference to the Keeper cult. There was a small reference to... There's a dead Burrek, actually, in one of the levels, just underneath a waterfall. But it's dead. You know, the Burrek... a belching Burrek. It was really in the original game. There's so many levels as well in the first game. When you revisit playing the game, you think, oh, here we are, the very old game. The AI is crap, but the nostalgia is still there, and the enjoyment of the depth of the storyline is there. But all that was like chopped away at excessively with Thief Reloaded, with the depth of the storyline, the depth of the character, why he is the way he is, what happened to him, why he has a funny eye in the original story is completely changed in Thief Reloaded. Like, they completely changed it, disconnected it from the original storyline. Of course, the excuses then came from the fan base started moaning about the inconsistencies, and the excuses came back as, oh, it's supposed to be Garrett like reincarnated, and he relives this certain pattern of life because he's a chosen one. But we all know he's kind of chosen in mythology that the Keeper cult thought was real. At the end of Thief 3 Deadly Shadows, it was such a complete circle that he became a Keeper, and it's not easy to see a Keeper, especially when he doesn't wish to be seen, right? How that I just accidentally muted myself there and disconnected the microphone. Hopefully that was connected properly throughout. It was just I moved it a bit there and it disconnected. But it was great. It was a full circle at the end. Enjoyable bugs here and there. And I felt like Thief 3, Thief Deadly Shadows left some quirkiness in like the programming deliberately that you could play with that really become enjoyable, and you can really get some interesting side effects from you play a certain way. What was also great was the challenge of gaining the pagans' trust and the Hammerite cult. In the Thief Reloaded, there's no Hammerites, there's no religious sect, no religious cult, nobody, nothing. There's nobody in the original storyline. It's just awful. But you can gain, the way I played a few times, Thief 3 Deadly Shadows, I gained the trust of both sides, and you get that progression bar of the trust. But if the Hammerites found out that you were gaining the trust of the pagans and vice versa, you would really lose a lot of trust from either side. If they caught you stealing anything, the Hammerites, especially in their churches or where they pray and whatever, yeah, you'd start to lose the trust quite a bit. It was interesting on the words and speech. It was added more to the fun in Thief 3 Deadly Shadows when pagans, you could be gain enough trust to be on their land, seen and walking around, and they could walk by you. They still kind of hated you, but they thought, "Oh, you're okay to have around," but there's always a but there. And perhaps you accidentally bump into one, like buff one against one, and they go, the way they talk is like, stupids. And I sees you there, Garrett, and all these sort of the speaksy kind of way the pagans spoke. It was great. It added a lot of enjoyable character to what could be ally or opposition, depending on how you played. But think about that. What have you thought about that? It's like, can somebody out there please create a patch for Thief Reloaded, which isn't really Thief, and make it something truly enjoyable with, by the way, the side quest are way more enjoyable than whatever this weird storyline is of this Thief Reloaded. It's been referred to Reloaded. A lot of people don't know what it's saying. What it is when that, because they saw this new release of Thief and they didn't really hear or know about the history of it. They called it Thief Reloaded for a bit. Then it was just Thief because it was meant to be the whole storyline. Rebooted the whole thing. It was too much work for them, clearly, because you would need to include the Keeper cult. You would need to include the Hammerites as actual characters and people who have their environments, their land, and the Keepers would have their libraries. The pagans would have their little forest sections. The Hammerites would have the big buildings, the churches. So all of that gone. It just wasn't in the storyline. The primal in Thief Reloaded, the Thief reboot, whatever you want to call it now, is just this. The way it changes some of the characters. Oh, that's zombies. Zombies on steroids, granted, because the zombies on the original Thief game were relatively easy to kill, other than the bone horde level. There you can get situations, there's so many of them just coming at you. If you run out of holy water or fire arrows, they can end up getting you a little bit. But there's plenty of ways, it's just one click away or whatever to save the game, which I enjoyed. Where with Thief re-release, there was just certain save points you can get to. Is like a cupboard or cabinet thing you can hide in, and those are actual save points as well. But I think really bows and arrows and flash bombs and all this and make the shadows very effective, in which you really kind of disappear in the shadows if you're hiding. Obviously, if you're moving around a bit, you might see something, and make it as give that effect as if a player would go, "Was somebody there? Is it him? Is it the one you're looking for? Is it another player?" And it would be great. And different ways to implement that would be everyone can play a guard, and somebody can play the thief, Garrett. Garrett being a very deep character, and the know-how and skills, the challenge would be for the other players to find ways to get around that and find that balance, right? Yeah, I just thought I'd share that out there, because I think that would be extremely popular. But there's plenty of other crap going on in the world at the moment where I don't even think that people are too focused on creating, if they're game companies or whatever, especially if they're doing this in America, they're like, plenty of companies are looking to do business elsewhere in other countries. Though And plenty of countries are looking to do no business with America. There's huge containers of corn now, not going anywhere. Huge containers. They're not being shipped out. They're not going anywhere. And companies don't want them, not because they're failed, not because they're poisoned or whatever. It's because they're American. That is how much, and rightly so, just how much America is not trusted anymore. Not because of Trump, because this is going to happen anyway. Trump just put it all on steroids. He exponentially sped this up, which once it started speeding up, it took on its own exponential speeding up. He doesn't know what the fuck he hasn't got control himself anymore, and who's advising him, if anybody? This is where people just don't understand. It's like he surrounds himself with sociopathic people, and sociopathic people will use him as a puppet and tool. You think Caroline Leavitt is a victim of circumstance, repeating the script? She's just as bad as any of them, because she's willing, cowardly enough to repeat everything is said like a script, no matter how absurd it sounds, no matter how much it flies in the face of obvious facts, because she's a narcissistic, well, not narcissist, she's definitely something wrong with that woman. There's a lack of certain facial expressions that go along with sociopathy from that woman, and not really diagnosed. I'm not really knowledgeable enough or qualified to diagnose her as a sociopath, but I wouldn't be surprised. She has that deadpan stare. People have done memes about her that they're trying to copy her as a parody, but they've got it wrong. They haven't really analysed or looked at her lack of emotion. She has one emotion she uses, and that's like doubling down and kind of like a bit angry. But there's, look at her forehead. Extreme lack of actual activity on her forehead there. That is part of sociopathy, the robotic callousness. Sociopathy is very, 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 very different to, you've got to emphasize the very there, psychopathy, by the way, because people get those confused until you start really realizing which one's which and what the differences are. Then you realize, whoa, that's so different. I mean, put it in a nutshell, simplify it with sociopaths don't care about humans' feelings. Psychopaths don't care about human life. There's a lot of complexities to talk about there, but that's really collapsing it down to the most simple thing. Psychopaths don't even care about their own life, not really. Thanks for watching anyway. What do you think about Thief being that way, regardless of me going on a tangent about Caroline Leavitt, whatever. All crazy. Cheers, bye.